And they knew that they had a right to carry guns. And they knew that they had a right to watch the police. And they knew that if the police arrested somebody, they could stand witness as long as they kept, say, 20 or 30 feet. I don't know the distance. As long as they kept distance from the proper distance from the police, they could observe everything that's happening. Well, as you can imagine, if you're a police officer, whether you are a racist pig of an officer or not, you're not going to be too thrilled about angry men with guns following you around when you arrest somebody, whether they deserve to be arrested or not. You're not going to be too happy about that because the guns are loaded. It creates incredible friction and creates a crisis at the state capitol. State legislature, very unhappy about these Panther patrols, entertains a bill that makes it illegal to carry weapons in urban districts. Well, the Panthers were exclusively urban. Now, I didn't mention race, didn't mention the Panthers, but it clearly was targeting the Panthers, trying to kill these Panther patrols. So the Panthers decide to go up to Sacramento, the state capital, and challenge the bill. And while they're there, something of a circus happens. I want to play for you a clip of that circus.
The boldness of the Panther actions attracted young blacks, many in their teens. Carrying loaded firearms in public was a well-protected legal right in California. But with the emergence of the Black Panthers, state officials introduced legislation to outlaw carrying loaded firearms within city limits. May 1967. In protest, the Panthers traveled to Sacramento, the state capital.
We arrived there, all these black men and women, 24 males and 6 females with guns. And Ronald Reagan, then the governor, was on the lawn with 200 future leaders of America, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. And these kids started eating this session on the lawn and coming to see us. And these young white kids thought we were a gun club.
Knowing the media would be there, the group of men and women then entered the Capitol building. A nation that had grown used to the nonviolent civil rights movement was now confronted with new images of black protests. Later, at a Sacramento service station, news cameras documented the continuing debate over law and guns.
Hey, don't start off. That's a rat shotgun just like yours. You know what the Constitution right? You have no right to take my gun away from me. You break the Constitution right.
The pamphlet says that the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls on the American people in general to take careful note of the racist California legislature. Why do you believe the legislature is racist?
Because you're a part of it, and this is the right system. It's allowing you to see where we at.
Do you believe everything that's in that pamphlet?
Pamphlet speaks for itself.
As you see, people didn't know what to make of these young men and young women. The Panthers go national immediately following this run-in at the state capitol. People are attracted to the charisma of its representatives, its members, They're attracted to the cleverness and way they're handling, the police and authorities who don't know what to make of these folks. But they're also responding to the agenda of the Black Panthers, and certainly in no small measure, it's internationalism. I want to read to you an excerpt. You heard part of the executive mandate number 1 being read. This is what they came up to Sacramento to announce. I want to read to you a longer excerpt. At the same time that the American government is waging a racist war of genocide in Vietnam, the concentration camps in which Japanese Americans were interned during World War II are being renovated and expanded. Since America has historically reserved the most barbaric treatment for non-white people, we are forced to conclude that these concentration camps are being prepared for black people who are determined to gain their freedom by any means necessary. The enslavement of black people from the very beginning of this country, the genocide practiced on the American Indians and the confining of the survivors on reservations, the savage lynching of thousands of black men and women, the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and now the cowardly massacre in Vietnam, all testify to the fact that toward people of color, the racist power structure of America has one policy: repression, genocide, terror, and the big stick. Black people have begged, prayed, petitioned, demonstrated, and everything else to get the racist black power structure of America to right the wrongs which have historically been perpetrated against black people. All of these efforts have been answered by more repression, deceit, and hypocrisy. As the aggression of the racist American governments escalates in Vietnam, the police agencies of America escalate the repression of black people throughout the ghettos of America. Vicious police dogs, cattle prods, and increased patrols have become familiar sights in black communities. City Hall turns a deaf ear to the pleas of black people for relief from this increasing terror. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense believes that the time has come for black people to arm themselves against this terror before it is too late. A people who have suffered so much for so long at the hands of a racist society must draw the line somewhere. We believe that the black communities of America must rise up as one man to halt the progression of a trend that leads inevitably to their total destruction. Again, an era of heightened prose, certainly, but there's no doubting that the Panthers are tapping into a nerve that's reverberating throughout America, deepening anxiety of what exactly is going on over in Vietnam, deep concern about what's happening to the young men who come back shell-shocked, if not in body bags. Now, so much of the Panthers is about this bravado. So much of the Panthers is about actually doing real work on the ground. And over the course of the heightened moment of the Panthers' existence, which is really about 66 to about 74 in terms of its greatest coherence, the Panthers doing other things as well. Yes, there's no doubt that there were many Panthers who were violating the Panther program because they were using alcohol and using drugs. They were also selling drugs and engaged in all kinds of things that are illegal. There's no doubt about that. This is part of the thing that infuriates white America, is like, why are we going to let these thugs have guns, for goodness sakes, and tell our police, our right-minded citizens, what to do? But the Panthers were also doing things on the ground that people really didn't hear about, or if they heard about, they ignored. Looking in a city like Oakland, with essentially a ravaged social services system, the Panthers saw the need for after-school programs for black children and for hot breakfast programs, things that they just weren't getting through the school system. So as the Panthers get a little more organized towards the late 60s and early 70s, you see hot breakfast programs starting, after-school programs starting, basic education literacy kind of programs starting as well. You also see, not just in Oakland, but in places throughout the country, with the ranges of success, Panther health clinics opening up. These are medically underserved communities. And even though we're at the era of the Great Society, when LBJ is trying to prop up the poorest people in the country across the board, the quality of health care in black communities was abysmal. So the Panthers organized health clinics, free health clinics. You come in and very successfully organized sickle cell anemia tests, a disease that afflicts African Americans disproportionately in this country, and the Panthers would test for it and try to help these people who get tested positively to get the medicine they need to live a life without so much discomfort and pain. So the Panthers were doing social service work, community organizing work, certainly. They were, in their way, trying to enforce law and order, follow the Constitution, state Constitution as well. And they were also doing those things that terrified so many Americans in terms of representing this kind of angry, violent hypermasculinity, and also being involved in gun and drug trades. Now, Eldridge Cleaver had a particularly important role in cultivating support for the Panther Party. He does a lot through Soul and Ice, the book I've asked you to read this week, or read most of this week. Cleaver was a petty criminal, and if you've already started the book, it's shocking that here's a person who admits to rape and explain that he practices on black women before his plan to start raping white women. He is, to be as polite as possible, rather homophobic. He goes after James Baldwin in the most aggressive ways. But he's also quite brilliant, certainly as a cultural commentator, cultural critic. I want to read a passage from the book that actually helps you understand or gives you a sense of the ways in which that Cleaver through Soul and Ice really fascinated a certain well-heeled part of of America that really helped the Panthers onto a road to success, at least for a time. And I believe this is from about page 178. And it's essentially, I think, maybe 3 sentences I want to read, but it's one heck of a series of 3 sentences. In the swift, fierce years since the 1954 school desegregation decision, a rash of seemingly unrelated mass phenomena has appeared on the American scene, deviating radically from the prevailing hot dog and malted milk norm of the bloodless, square, superficial, faceless Sunday morning atmosphere that was suffocating the nation's soul. And all of this in a nation where the so-called molders of public opinion, the writers, politicians, teachers, and cab drivers are willful, euphoric liars or zip-damn ostriches and owls, a clique of undercover ghosts, a bunch of Walter Jenkinses, a lot of coffee-drinking, cigarette-smoking, sly, suck-assing, status-seeking, cheating, nervous, dry-balled, tranquilizer gulch, countdown-minded, out-of-style, slithering snakes. No wonder that many innocent people, the manipulated and the stimulated, some of whom were game for a reasonable amount of mystery and even adventure, had their minds scrambled. These observers were not equipped to either feel or know that a radical break, a revolutionary leap out of their sight had taken place in the secret parts of this nation's soul. It was as if a driverless vehicle were speeding through the American night down an unlighted street toward a stone wall and was boarded on the fly by a stealthy ghost with a drooling leer on his face, who at the last detour before chaos and disaster careened the vehicle down a smooth highway that leads to the future and life. And to ask these Americans to understand that they were the passengers on this driverless vehicle, and that the lascivious ghost was the Saturday night crotch frunk of the twist, or the yeah, 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 which the Beatles hijacked from Ray Charles. To ask these Calvinistic profligates to see the logical and reciprocal links is more cruel than asking a hope-to-die Okie music buff to cop the sounds of John Coltrane. It's a heck of 4 sentences. And really one of the sharpest cultural critiques that I've seen in quite some time. Now, taking back to the very beginning of this course, when I talked about the ironies of John Jack's existence, remember the charcoal rubbing of the headstone,